Hello, hello, hello. Hi, Peggy and Linda and Tim. Hope you guys are doing well today. I do. We're going to continue on a theme that we've started the last couple of weeks, or couple of weeks. I hope Tim is having a good day, Linda. Tell him I said hello and give him a big hug when you see him the next time. Hope you're doing well too, Linda. And Miss Peggy, I hope you're doing well today. I do. It's good to see you guys. Hi, Connie. Good to see you. Connie, I hope you're doing well. You were recovering, correct? I think that's what you told me, you were recovering. And I hope you're making a good recovery. Peggy's recovering too. Everybody's kind of hanging in there. Hey, Julie. Everybody's just kind of got stuff going on, you know? It's kind of the way life is sometimes. Heard from Connie's a bit better. Good. Heard from a friend of mine earlier today, and she's one of my online connections whom I have had a relationship with for a long time. We've never met in person, but we have done some collaborations at times, and they're going through the weeds. Hey, Tori. You know, sometimes it's just weedy. Sometimes life is weedy. Sometimes it's worse than weedy. Sometimes it definitely is worse than weedy. Anyway, so hugs, prayers, good thoughts, lots of positive energy, lots of sunshine, lots of light, lots of water. All those kinds of things help. Yeah. Okay. All right. So anyway, we're going to jump on in because I don't know how much we're going to get done today, but we're going to try. So the theme that I have been exploring because of a book I read is painting on copper. And so in case you weren't here, I'm going to show you what. I'm not showing you the book again. It's in the other room. It's called The Art Thief, and it was just about people stealing artwork, very expensive artwork, because the guy felt like it was not appreciated. Hey, Rhonda. He didn't feel like the artwork was appreciated. And so he needed to own it, possess it. He didn't sell it. I mean, it's an interesting story. If you have any interest in kind of curious stories, that's the category I'd put it in. It's a good one. Anyway, I got interested in the fact that some of the things that they stole were paintings painted on copper. And I'm like, you can paint on copper. And so I played around with just painting on copper painted paper. So that's what this is. That's where we started. So this was just had a copper painted background. So this is Delta Ceramcoat Gleams Metallic Copper. Had 2 coats of that on top of just a watercolor paper. And then I drew these sort of open, whatever, made up flowers, made up leaves. Everything on this is made up. Painted it with acrylic paint, like the golden fluid acrylics or some of the golden high flow. I even used the golden flat. I don't have very many containers of this, but I used everything that was pretty transparent or translucent, and that's how I painted this. And then I went back over it when it was dry and did some line work. Before I did the line work, I printed out copies And so this was a copy that was printed on paper, just copy weight paper. And I played around with the settings on, this is a laser print. And I played around with the copy settings, copy color settings, and did some of them really light and some of them not so light. Hello, Ellen. Hi, Dorothy. Hey, Shu. Good to see you. Good to have you here. And so you can see there's a big difference in the original, which is this, and the copy, which is that. That comes from the fact that the metallic paint is so highly reflective. You can kind of see it shimmering. And so it doesn't translate or copy exactly the way that it shows up in the original artwork. And I expected that, but really didn't know what it would do. Anyway, then I took some of the copies and I outlined one in white and I outlined another one in black. So this one is, the outlines are in black. And then I did another one in white. And Monday night, if you weren't around, what we did was slice it apart. So one with the white outlines, we sliced one direction. The one with the black outlines, sliced the other direction, wove it back together, and then cut it apart and put the woven pieces on cardstock with a black mat. Okay, so that's how we got here. What I was doing was just seeing if I could make the outlines kind of match up, and they do in some places, but not in others. Here's another one. As you get further and further down the sheet of paper as you're weaving, the outlines move further and further away from each other. And I just didn't worry about it. I just went with whatever there was. However it turned out is how it turned out. And then in the end, I had these 3 little pieces left over. And so I just put those on a card as well. So you don't even have any of the flowers except this little tiny bit showing. And there was one little piece here that I needed to glue, so I'm going to just set that to the side so I remember to do that. Anytime you cut apart a woven piece of paper, you're going to have some of the pieces that you're going to have to glue, spot glue, so that the pieces will hang together. Otherwise, there's going to be little bits like this one and this one. And you see that need to be touched up. Otherwise, they're just going to rip off or come apart. Okay? All right. So that is what we did with the paper. It is good to see you all the way from India. Thank you. Thank you for coming. I'm glad you figured out the time. The time has changed, and so that always messes things up for a little bit. Okay, and thank you, Rhonda, for being here. I don't ever expect my mods to be here, but I'm always grateful when they are. So thank you, thank you. Okay, so let's see. What we're going to do now is we're going to take, because I was kind of talking about this before, and now we're actually going to do it and see what happens. I bought a roll of copper flashing, and this is really going to be bright. So we'll see how this goes. This is copper flashing that came from Lowe's Hardware or Lowe's Home Center or whatever it's called. And I glued it onto a piece of chipboard. And the size is 5 by 7.5. So it's 5 inches by 7.5 inches. and I glued it on with Crafter's Pick the Ultimate because it says on there that it adheres to metals, plastics, glass, and more. I've had this kind of glue off and on for years, and I really like it because it is much, it's a real good kind of all-purpose glue. And then I put this under weight, and actually I glued this up a week ago, I think it was. And so it's it should be fully dry. I also tried gluing 2 pieces of the copper back to back because it has like this plastic gray plastic coating on the back of it, which I tried to peel off and it won't peel off. So I tried taking 2 pieces of the copper flashing and gluing it back to back, but it last I checked the glue was still not completely dry because it's completely non-porous, and so it does not want to dry in between the 2 layers. On this it seems to have dried just fine. Something else I got to try is I got these cradled plywood art panels. You can only get them in a set of 6 8x8, and the copper flashing is 8 inches in width, so it's the maximum width that I could get for this. So I have 6 of these. I don't know what I'm going to do with all 6 of them, but it's the only way I could get them. So I thought I'm going to glue another piece of copper onto this, and I'm going to try doing a mandala on it because I think it'll be cool. Another thing that I may try with those cradled wood pieces is I got this metal tape for $2.99 for a roll. It's more of a bronze color than the copper color. But I thought I might make a collage of these pieces of tape on one of those wood panels and then do something on top of that. As you can tell, this is sort of my current obsession. Hello, Christine. Good to see you. So it's my current obsession, so we'll see what happens. Okay? So there you go. All right, this is on here quite firmly, I believe. And so Dorothy bought some copper sheet, 1 millimeter thick, and she's found her transparent acrylics. Cool. I can't wait to see what you do with that. That is good. That's great. So can't wait to see what you do with it, Miss Dorothy. So what this is sandpaper. This is a wet or dry sandpaper. It's 320 grit. So as you look at the grit guide, this one is heading toward the fine grit because the bigger the number, the finer the grit. Lower the number, the coarser the grit. Okay, so this is a piece that I've had for a while. I haven't used it very much. But I'm going to take this and we're just going to sand this copper. Good deal, Dorothy. So we're going to just sand this. So if this noise bothers you, just mute me. But I thought I would be best to just do it all here because I have no idea what I'm doing. This is all a big experiment. Everything we've done so far has been an experiment. And so I say, why not continue experimenting, right? But I would like to have some tooth that the paint will stick. Part of what is nice about the copper is that the paint will slip around on it, but you don't want it to slip so much that it doesn't have anything to grab onto. So this is going to make the background who knows what it's going to do to it, because it's going to pick up the whatever the texture is from this piece of chipboard. And I'm okay with that because it's copper flashing, which is not cheap. However, if you take what this little piece of copper flashing costs, it's pennies. And a piece of chipboard that I've had in my stash for several years. So if it works out, great. If it doesn't work out, I am absolutely not worrying about it. So we are going to just sand this. I think you could probably do something similar with steel wool, but I really hate steel wool because it gets in your fingers and everything else. So, all right. So that's my sanded surface. Hey, Joni. That makes your teeth hurt. Sorry. Sorry. And then to clean it, I'm going to use isopropyl alcohol and a paper towel. And then I'm just going to go over it. So it's got some interesting texture happening. And it is cleaning, so we're going to go over it again. The oils from your hands are going to stick on this. So if you really want to be real prim and proper, then probably what you'd want to do is to wear some cotton gloves when you're doing this. I'm not going to do that because this is just a thing that we're going to try and see what happens. Okay, so hopefully I've got most of the sanding grit off of this. Now, my understanding from everything that I looked up and read, which was quite a bit actually, they used, need to use a baby wipe and clean my surface off. Everything said use oil paints. And I really had the great debate, which I told you guys before. I had the great debate about whether I wanted to invest in oil paints. I used to have lots of oil paints back in the day, and I decided I didn't want to do that because I don't really paint with oil. Oil paint requires separate brushes. It requires special things to thin the paint, special things to clean the paint. I've never worked with the water mixable oils. I'm not going to start that either. So we're just going to do this. And we're just going to use acrylic paint and just see what happens. If it fails, oh well. But you know, I got to say, this, which I had no idea if this was going to work, this was not a fail, and I really like how these turned out. So I'm like, okay, well, that was a big experiment, so let's try for some more. But sometimes I get in a mood about certain things and trying to figure out if they work, and because I'm all about figuring out how to make it work, if it works. I'm gonna have some coffee here. That's what I enjoy doing. I enjoy the experimentation. All right. This was a pattern that I found online. It was an image when I did, I think I Googled vase of flowers, or simple vase of flowers or something. And I used to love oils. I really did. Rhonda says she doesn't have patience for oil. I had loved working with oil paint. I'm telling you, I still struggle with acrylics, and I really struggle with watercolor. I just kind of have to do what I just have to have the attitude of playing with watercolor. Acrylics I've gotten better over time. So this was the image, I believe, as it printed out, and then I had to enlarge it so that it would fit on my copper the way I wanted it to. And then I took a piece of tracing paper, which is what this is, or vellum, but this is lighter weight than vellum. And I laid it on top of my pattern that I determined was the right size, and used a pencil and outlined it. And if it's not perfect, it's okay. But the reason I do a tracing paper image is so that I can see this through the copper, so I can have an idea as to whether it is going to fit on there, and so for placement purposes. So what I'm looking at is the bottom of the vase, the top of the top flower, and I can go lower with the vase, give it more airspace up here. I can go higher and give myself more table space. I'm just going to kind of do a happy medium. And then I'm going to look at this, and do I want to have the vase in the middle? Kind of looks like that's what I want for it to be. The other option is to take the flower petal that is furthest out on each side and measure the distance and center it that way. I think I'm just going to kind of go, I don't know. It really doesn't matter. I'm just going to go there and call it good. But scooch it up a little bit. I'm just going to call it good, and that's that. And then what I'm taking is a piece of painter's tape, and probably going to do 2 pieces of painter's tape actually. We'll see if this works. I'm going to put one here because the paper doesn't go all the way to the edge of the copper. And then I'm going to bend this one down at the top like so. So that there are two points that are holding the pattern. If there's only one, sometimes your pattern can move. Okay, let's see if this is going to work. I think it did work. I think it did work on my sample. Yeah, okay. So let's see how this goes. I'm going to move my water container out of the way. This is graphite paper. So it is shiny on one side. That's the part that transfers. So we're going to slip this under there. And I'm going to use a stylus. And I'm going to just I'm going to try the vase first. Not with a lot of pressure. Because I'm not after making a groove in the metal. Okay, I can see it. I'm not sure whether you guys will be able to see it, but I can see it, so. So I am, again, I'm not pressing hard. So this is a piece of graphite that is pretty new, and pretty black. So then you start wherever you want to start. So I'm going to come up here at the top of my design, and I'm going to outline my design. So I'm going to theoretically work from the top down, because when you use a stylus, the stylus does not make a mark on your paper. Your alternative is that you could use like a ballpoint pen. If you wanted to actually be able to see where you've traced the lines, you could do that. All right, let's see. I can't really see under there, so we're just gonna go for it and hope that it works. Again, I am not pressing hard enough to intentionally groove the copper, which would be pretty easy to do. I'm just hoping to press just hard enough to transfer the design. The leaf there, and then the center of the flower. I have no idea what these flowers are going to turn out to be like. We're just going to see what happens. So actually this leaf is part of that flower back there. Okay, you got to keep your wits about you, because otherwise you lose track of where you are in the transfer process of transferring the design. Okay, and sometimes I end up going over the same part of the design more than once, just because I forgot already which part I did transfer. I like to use the stylus personally because it does not mess up my pattern, and that way if I want to use this pattern again, which who knows, I probably will never use this again, but in case I wanted to, then it's nice to have that pattern. See, I get down in here and I'm like, yeah, what thing did I do? Okay. All right, I think I have it. So rather than take off both pieces of tape, I'm going to leave the one at the top. I'm going to flip this up, and then I'm going to look at it and see if I got all the flowers transferred. And I think I did. Okay. Okay, I think they're all transferred. I realize that you can't see that from where you are in the world, but I think you'll be able to see it as we start moving along. Okay? And if you take the paint or the tape off of your pattern, then your patterns don't stick to each other. So I would take these two things, because this is what came from that, and I would just clip those together and put them away. All right, let's try. I'm going to try going to the other camera, and I'm going to see if I can tilt this up. So give me a second here. And you're going to see the metallic kind of have a, you're going to see the picture have a little, almost a strobe effect, and that's coming from the ceiling fan, which is on, and if I turn that off, I'm going to croak. So the ceiling fan has to stay on. So if it really bothers you, I apologize, and yeah, it's the way it's going to be. Okay. Let us get a palette going. And I'm going to get rid of the palette paper from before, which hurts my soul to do that because there's a lot of room on there, but it's too much. It's too much for you guys to have to look at. So we're going to put the white palette paper, this is just a tablet of palette paper, on here. And I'm going to attempt to I'm going to see if I can get it where you can see and I can see. And so let us decide what color base we want to have on here. Maybe what we'll do is we'll start with Quin Magenta and Cadmium Red Hue. So let's just start. Let's just start and see what happens. Okay. So these are the Golden Fluid acrylics. On the bottles or the tubes, they will show how transparent the color is based on the black, how the black shows through or doesn't show through. So these are pretty translucent because the black is showing through. This one is more translucent than this one. As you see more of the black lines here than you do here. All right, let's try a little bit. I don't know how this is going to go, so you know what? We're just going to go for it and see what happens. If it doesn't work, what have we lost? A little bit of copper. Okay, I'm going to put a little bit of the Quin Magenta over there. And this is cadmium red medium hue. So let's put some of that. And then I have never used this color, I don't think, which is, this is in a tube. They did not have this in the fluid. And this color is quinacridone red. So we're going to put those three. To you they may look very similar, and that's okay. And I'm going to use some gloss glazing liquid, also by Golden. And so I'm going to use some of that. I would have gotten satin, but they didn't have it. So we're going to use gloss. So there you go. Okay. I'm just working with inexpensive brushes, super inexpensive brushes. These are just whatever the craft store had. I've had these brushes and I've used this kind of brush for ages, and so we're going to use that. And let's see, we might use also some India Yellow Hue just as a highlight color. So we'll put a little bit of this out as well. And then I don't know what's going to happen. Here we go. Let's see what happens, shall we? Let's start with the base. So I'm going to start with picking up some gloss glazing liquid, and I'm going to pick up some of the darkest color, which is the quinacridone magenta. And I'm going to come down the side of the vase here, but I'm not touching the edge of the vase. and across the bottom. So I am touching the bottom of the vase. And then I'm going to pick up some of the, whatever this one was. I'm trying to keep my colors straight. Cadmium red, medium hue. And I'm going to put on there with that. And I'm just going to kind of brush mix those together. And then maybe pick up some of this India yellow hue over here at the side. Come down the edge, and I may put a design on this later. It's hard to say. I am totally 100% making this up as we go. Across the bottom of the vase. And I'm just going to kind of brush mix these colors together because they're going to start drying pretty fast on this. At least that was my experience with what I experimented with, not only on the paper but also on this little piece of the copper that I played around with. It dried very quickly. And so I'm gonna have to kind of move along here. Yeah, I can see that I'm creating an edge from the Quin magenta. And so I'm gonna have to come back with some more paint. So this could be one of those things that could be interesting or maybe not. Because what you're going to watch is you're going to watch me experiment. I'm picking up more of the yellow, the India yellow, to get some reflected light coming around the edge of the vase over here is what I'm trying to do. Which may have to come in, I may have to put it back later. So what I'm kind of after is just kind of a pottery look to the base. Different colors. Not too smooth with the, not after a totally smooth look. Somewhat smooth. Okay, so I'm just going to let that just kind of do its thing for a minute. I don't know what it's going to do. I'm just going to kind of let it dry and see what happens. And so maybe what we'll do now is let's, I don't know, let's fill in some flowers. And maybe we'll add some other colors to the palette. So we have this kind of red and yellow palette. So we might put a little pyrrole orange out here. And maybe a little bit of this fluorescent pink. So let's put a little, and this is the high flow acrylic, so it has the ball in it. So the formulation is quite different, and I do not know that much about golden fluid acrylics. And so we're just gonna, I don't know why the mixing ball is in there, but I know that if there's a mixing ball, you better utilize it. And you can see the difference between the fluid acrylics and the high flow. So I'm gonna tip my palette up just a little bit. And what else? I think we'll put some Diary Lied Yellow, which is this one. Put a little bit of that out. So I'm going to keep the flower colors kind of warm because the copper is warm in tone. Okay. And so that's my palette I got working there. And let's go to a smaller angled brush. Same kind of brush. Not a good brush. People who are really into brushes and really into painting would probably have a conniption if they saw that. That's okay. Let's try some of this tube acrylic that I have up here. So this is the only one up here that I'm dipping into right now that is a tube acrylic. And the pink is going to continue to run down the palette, but we're just going to see what happens. So let's come up here to this flower petal and base it in, kind of pat in some color. What I want to do is allow the copper background to kind of influence the paint. So I'm not interested in making everything real smooth, and I'm going to let some of the colors just sort of play together by patting them on. I did notice when I was playing with these colors before that you have a point at which you must stop, because if you go a little bit further, it's going to lift the paint. So I've just patted those colors together. And so I'm going to come over to the petal next to it, which is, let's use the Quin Magenta. So there are two petals on this little flower. This one only has two petals. And I may accidentally, or on purpose, change the shape of the petals a little bit. At this point, it's accidental if I change the shape of the petals. So this is the Quin Magenta. So just patting it on, very lightly touching. And then I'm going to maybe pick up some of the orange just for something different. Pat a little bit of the orange on this petal. Just to try to get some variation in the petals, and I didn't get a whole lot, so let's try again. So I'm just patting between those colors just so that I can maintain a little bit of the orange and some of the other color and still have some of this pink. Maybe we'll put a little bit more of the pink on top of that orange just to kind of make this, see if we can make these two petals go together a little bit better. So I'm purposely trying to not have them be the same, but similar. Okay, that's okay with me. I'm good with that one. I'm good with what that looks like. And I realize I'm not watching the chat very much, but yeah, that's hard to do when you do this. Okay, I'm going to pick up a little bit more of my medium, which is the gloss glazing liquid, and I'm going to pick up some of the yellow and see if I can just touch some of that little center strokes at the base of those petals. Okay, so I'm just going to see what that does. And I'm going to pick up a little bit of that darker India yellow and put down here at the base of this center and just see what it does. Okay, and then I'm just going to let it sit, and I don't know what it'll do. We may have to come back and work on it some more, but you know, is what it is. Okay, let's go up to, there's a big flower right in here, open. And so I'm going to go back to my larger brush. And I'm going to, in order to give this some variety, I'm going to pick up more of that glazing liquid. And I'm going to pick up the India yellow, which is that kind of a yellow ochre color. And I'm going to start up here. And there is no rhyme or reason to why I'm doing what I'm doing. I'm just starting and just letting serendipity kind of take its guidance. So I've base coated that in, and then I'm going to maybe try some of that orange again, that pyrrole orange, and pat some of that in this petal. And just pat these two colors together. Okay, so we have orange and that pyrrole. That orange is strong. I'm going to pick up a little bit of the Diary Light yellow, which is that really pretty golden yellow, and tip the edge of the petal with that. And maybe draw a little bit of that down over that orange, just to kind of give it a little bit of variety. Okay, then let's let that alone. The hardest part for me is not wanting to continue going over and over and over something. And if you do, I can promise you right here, right now, if you keep playing, you're going to make a big mess, because that's how that goes. All right, back to the Indian yellow hue. And I'm going to put some of that on this petal. As soon as I get this flower kind of done, I will look at the chat again, okay? So, patting that color in. And a little bit of that orange. Let's see if we can control the orange a little bit more this time. Not quite so much. So we have variety in the petals. So not quite so much orange this time. Going back with the base color, which was that India yellow, and putting that, a little bit more of that, and then back with the Diary Light yellow up here at the tip of the petal, and back with a little bit more of that India hue. So that the petals hopefully will look like they're on the same flower, but I'm trying to get it where you can see. They're on the same flower, but they're not identical. Okay, and maybe this one over here needs a little bit more. I'm just going to pat a little bit of the yellow on this one again. Okay, good enough. So let's go. This is a 5-petal flower, so I'm going to work my way around. So I'm going to come to this one, and once again I'm going to go with that India yellow hue, that kind of yellow ochre color, and I'm having to tip it so I can see the outline of my petal. So I'm just going to tip that color, just pat it in toward the center. The center I'm just going to kind of leave alone. So it's kind of making that center shape happen there. Maybe a little bit more of the orange. And just kind of patting it. And then back to the bright yellow, which is the Diary Lied yellow, and patting a little bit of that out here on the edge of this petal, so that it's getting progressively, hopefully, brighter as we work toward the front part of the flower. We'll see. We'll see how this works. A little bit more out here. Okay, not bad, not bad. So next we're going to come up to this petal on this side. So again, more of the glazing liquid, and I picked up got a little bit of the pink color that I picked up in the glazing liquid. I'm going to just work with it. And I need a little bit more of my India yellow color. So squirting a little bit more of that on my palette. We're going to come up here and a little bit more of the glazing liquid, which had some of that pink in it. And you know, so that actually should work to our advantage, because it may tint that petal a little bit. Sorry, my head's getting in the way. Okay, just patting that color down. The paint wants to slip on the copper, and you know, that doesn't bother me a whole heck of a lot, to tell you the truth. And then let's get more of the orange, which I need a little bit more of that. Oh no, I don't, sorry. It's on my palette right here, up here with the pink. Okay, and let's put a little bit of that in here. You can't blend with an empty brush. You got to have something on your brush. So I'm using the middle color, which is that the darker color. It's kind of the darker color that I'm putting all over the petal, which is that India yellow. So I'm using that. Then I'm going to come back and pick up some of the Diary Lied yellow and pat out here along the edge of that petal a little bit to make it kind of show up and give it a little more variety, hopefully. Okay, so we kind of got going on. The orange is not showing much over here. This could be living very dangerously, but we're gonna try to pat a little bit more of the orange over in this petal. So it will show up just a little bit more. Okay, we'll call it good. Need a little bit more glazing liquid. This may turn out to be really good. It may turn out to be something I go, yeah, nope, going in the trash. So it's just an experiment and just some fun. Okay, I picked up some more of the glazing liquid, which looks like white paint, but it's clear. And I'm going to pick up a little bit of the India yellow and a little bit of the Diary Light yellow together with whatever's on the brush. And we're going to put in this petal. And this petal, I went outside the drawing line, so I'm going to see if I can, before it dries, pick up a little bit of a damp brush and just chase back that color to separate those petals a little bit, because they were kind of, they're separate. They're not, it's not one big giant petal. Okay, so we have that. Picking up a little bit of orange again, and we're going to put that toward the center. And then maybe a little bit of the plain Diary Light yellow out here on the outer edge of the petal. Just out here like so, just to give it some contrast and color. Make this petal lighter and brighter because it's a little bit closer to us, like so. Okay, I don't know how well this is translating to you, but yeah, that's what we're gonna do. We're gonna just keep playing with this and see what happens. And I think what I'm gonna do now is I'm gonna get a little bit of green gold, which is this golden fluid acrylic, and I'm going to find a spot where I can stick some of that on the palette, and a little small brush that's not, it's not wet, and I'm going to get a little bit of the glazing liquid, just a little bit, helps keep that paint kind of moving around, thins it out a little bit, and let's just dab some of that in the center here, green gold. To make a little center. As this flower is wide open. And then I may take a little bit of this green gold, and over here on this flower, which is only has 2 petals, just dab a little bit of that in there and see if I can kind of blend it out into the yellow, just to give it a little bit more interest. And then what do we want to do? I'm thinking. I think I'm going to just let this just kind of, well, we might put, let me get a little bit of white. So this white is zinc white. So I'm going to put a little bit of white out here on the palette. And I'm going to get a little bit of the Diary Light yellow and a little bit of the zinc white together. So a little yellow, a little white. So it is definitely a little bit lighter than the original Diary Light. And let's see what happens if we just touch a little bit of that in that center on top of the green. Okay, to just make some little like pollen sorts of stamens, pollens, I don't know. And then what happens if we dab a little bit of that? Dribble a little bit of that out onto the petals. To give the petals maybe a little bit more interest. Maybe a little bit more dimension. Okay, so I don't know whether you can see that, but it's there. It's absolutely there. Okay, let's go to another petal. Okay, I said I would that I would look at the chat, so let me do that here for a second. Let's look at the chat. Okay, Dorothy says she just remembered that she didn't fetch the milk, so she went to the door and it's so cold. Whoa, 4 degrees centigrade. We're supposed to get a cold snap here also. It's supposed to get really chilly again. Hey, Barbara Clark. Good for you, Ellen. I hope that that works out really well. Good for you. Okay, so that's enough of that. Okay, let's go back to this. I'm going to, what I do is I work with a pad of paper towels, and then when it gets wet, then I just sort of refold, or it gets messy with paint. I just kind of take it apart like this, and I just refold it so I get a new clean part of the paper towel, and that way it lets me use this one little wad of paper towels, which is probably 3 or 4 of those half sheets. It lets me use those over and over. Okay, so let's go to the next flower. Let's go to this one over here, which is also a wide open flower. There's 3 wide open flowers. Let us, I'm going to use a smaller brush because this little flower is a little bit smaller. I'm going to use the orange and maybe a little bit of the pink. I don't know how this is going to work, and a little bit of our glazing liquid. And let's see what happens on this flower petal. So kind of keeping these all in the same, using the same palette of colors. But varying them should help give us some interest in our flowers, so that they look like they're from the same plant, but maybe they're harvested at different times. So this one, I'm picking up some of the India yellow and patting in that center, toward the center of the flower. And maybe, you know, what we might do is pick up a teeny bit of that quinacridone magenta with that gold India yellow and see if we can get it to be a little bit darker. That'll be more interesting. Okay, just patting in that center, sort of that center section, toward the center, not in the center, but toward the center. Okay, just patting that color in there. Let's see if it shows a little bit more over here on this camera. That makes the painting look absolutely atrocious up here, doesn't it? It doesn't look nearly that bad in real life. It's the reflection from the light above that is causing this paint to look so bad. But that's okay. That's all right. And we're going to pick up some Diary Light Yellow and come out here on the edge of this little petal. It's funny how the light makes such a big difference with the reflective quality of the copper. Who knows? Who knows? Like I said, this is just a big experiment to see what happens. Okay, I'm going to go back to my orange mixture, which was the Pyrrole Orange and the India Hue. What was the name of that? India Yellow Hue. Put some of that on there, and then let's pick up a little bit more of the India Yellow Hue and a little bit of the Quin Magenta, and we'll put some of that on this petal. We'll see if we can make it look a little bit different than the other one. So maybe not put in quite as much. And then, now that I've kind of figured out what I want to do, I'm going to maybe work a little quicker, who knows. A little bit of the yellow for that petal, outer edge. Okay, so the petals look similar but a little different. And then back to our base mix, which was the India Yellow Hue and the Pyrrole Orange. And some of the, I don't know what I just dipped my brush in. I think I might have gotten a little bit of white in there. It is interesting to see what the copper is doing underneath. From where I sanded it, there is some texture that it's picking up from the chipboard underneath. And so right here, I don't know whether you can see it, almost has like a checkerboard look, which I find fascinating to see what's happening there. And then a little bit more of the shading color, which for this I used the India Yellow Hue and the Quin Magenta. We'll put a little bit of that. Patting it in toward the middle where the center is, and then I'm going to pick up a little bit more of the Diary Light Yellow and tip the outer edge of that petal out here. So this flower is going to have more of this pinky reddish tone than this one over here, hopefully. That's the hope. And also it has a little more of the orange in it. Okay, a little bit more orange on the palette. Since I have a ceiling fan going, it is causing my paint to dry unusually fast, but that is the nemesis of me with acrylic paint. Totally is. It dries very fast on my palette. It just is what it is. If I don't have the ceiling fan on, I'm going to absolutely croak. Today, for whatever reason, because it's getting ready to turn off cold again here, as I was putting on makeup, I had a fan going so that I could, because I knew it was kind of warm, going to be kind of warm doing that. And I am here to tell you, it was like crazy. It was crazy that I was getting my makeup on, and it was, I was sweating enough that I'm like, I'm going to sweat this makeup right back off my face. It was nuts. I'm like, it's supposed to be getting really cold here again. Like down to 15 or some craziness. And I'm like, I'm going to have to remember this because right now, I'm feeling real. It was like the humidity in the bathroom was crazy. Okay, so we've got the shading color. I'm going to come back to the Diary Light Yellow, which is my kind of highlight color on this little flower petal. Like that. And I'm going to come back to my base color, which was the Pyrrole Orange and the India Yellow hue together, and just kind of pat that a little bit to kind of blend those colors together. So what I'm finding in working with the copper is that just patting the paint colors together is the way so far that's working the best for me. So there you go. That's what we're doing so far. I need some more India Yellow hue because we've got one more petal to do. I just squirted it all over my hand, so my hand's gonna have a lovely shade of gold going on. Okay, see what I mean? Can you see that? I don't know if you can. Anyway, okay, so back to India Yellow hue and a little orange. And maybe, let's see, we had some white out here. Maybe put a little more white in the mix just for variety. So I'm just mixing colors together with my brush, which I find that I like the best. Back when I was doing a lot of decorative painting back in the late 70s, early 80s, into the middle 80s, a lot of that was all my oil painting days back then, and we would spend ages mixing colors, like with a palette knife, because the way that was taught was that you mixed up all the colors before you ever started painting, which you could do because it was oil, so you could do that. You cannot do that with this. That at least I haven't figured out how to do it. That doesn't mean you can't do this, but I certainly haven't figured out how to how to mix piles of acrylic paint and have it hold. Anyway, we would mix paint for, you know, you might mix paint with a palette knife for an hour, hour and a half, until you got the colors just exactly right. And then the next thing you would do is start painting. Fortunately, the colors would hold for a long time, and which was great. But boy, I don't think I could do that with this. It dries too fast. Too fast for moi. Okay, so we have this little flower. So it is a different color than this one and different from that, and yet they all look like they might be related to each other. Okay, that's what we're going for. And now I'm going to do a similar thing to this center. So I'm going to use the green gold and maybe add some of the Diary Light yellow into it. So green gold, pick up some Diary Light yellow and just kind of mix those together. I want it on the green side, but a different color than what this one is up here. So let's see if we achieve that. Again, we just are after having the flowers look like they're related, like they came off the same, like they came out of the same packet of flowers that the flower grower brought to the flower shop. But they're not all exactly the same, because we want them to be more interesting than just identical, you know, identical flowers. So it's a little different color than the center of that one. I don't know whether you can tell, but that's what we've got going. And then let's just take some white and mix into that, brush mix into that with whatever is on my brush. Looks like it's got some red and some different colors in it. Okay, that's not enough contrast. You have to have enough contrast so it'll show up. Still not enough. Try again. That's a little better. Okay, so I'm going to leave that center alone. It's different than that one, which is what I was after, and that is a funny looking little thing that I was going by what the drawing was. And I'm not sure that I like that, so we may play around with that after it's dry. Who knows? And then over here there is just a single petal right here. So I think I'm going to go back to more of this kind of red color, and picking up some of the medium, which we need some more. If you keep your medium way far away from your white paint, that will help. Okay, let's see what we can get over here with this petal. So this color I chose Cad Red Medium Hue. That's what I've put as my base color. This is very transparent. Super duper transparent. This is just a single petal. very transparent. So the copper is going to really show through on this one, which I think could be kind of a cool look. Let's pick up a little bit of the pyrrole orange and add into it. And just to make it go with the rest of the flowers, we're going to put a little bit of the Quin Magenta down here in the base. My pile of Quin Magenta is drying, so we're going to see if we can make it go before I squirt out some more. Okay, and blend that in just a little bit. Reshape that petal just a teeny bit. Okay, so that looks more like it kind of goes with it, and then maybe picking up a little bit of the Diary Light yellow and maybe a little bit of white mixed into it. And see if we can put a little bit of that out here on this. The edge of the petal again. Okay, I think it looks like it kind of goes with the rest of them. We'll have to put some little center green things down here in a little bit. This one I don't like, so we're going to have to go back and address that. That's probably dry enough that we can do that. Let's see if we can make that work at all better for what I'd like for it to be. So let's see. Sometimes when you don't like something, you can just paint it out and see what happens. See if you can make it work a little better. Yeah, I like that much better. So I'll let the green be at the bottom. We may even add a little bit more so it looks more like a bud, you know, like the part of the flower that's holding the petals so it starts to bloom out, right? How would you treat the surface of the solid copper you bought? You know, I would look online at what different people suggest. Everything that I saw, it was a matter of cleaning. Make sure you clean it with alcohol, the isopropyl alcohol, and most places I looked suggested that you sanded it lightly with sandpaper. Now this is very lightweight, and so it's picking up, when I was sanding with it, it was picking up the texture below from the chipboard, which I actually like what that background is. So I don't know that. The main thing I know that I read, Dorothy, was the cleaning it with the isopropyl alcohol. That's the thing that I really found that was the most important. So that's as much as I've told you everything I know. I've told you everything I know so far. Okay, I'm going to put out a little bit more of the Quin Magenta. And let's go for one more flower here. And so this flower has 4 petals. And we're going to see if we can sort of marry all these together. I need more of this pink bounced down here, so we're going to see what we can come up with. So I'm going to start with my medium, which is the gloss glazing liquid, I'm going to pick some of the Quin Magenta and maybe mix in a little bit of one of those darker reds. What was that? The one in the tube, which was quinacridone red. And that pile of paint has gotten dry, so we're gonna put a little bit more out. Add a little bit of that into this, just to change the color a little bit, and then maybe put a little bit of white in it, just to kind of make that color a little bit different. So let's see. Again, we want it to look like it goes with the rest of the painting, the rest of the flowers. But is not the same as, okay? So that is our kind of base color for this little petal, like so. And then I'm going to come back, and this is probably really risky, but you know, you don't know till you try it. I'm going to pick up some of the green gold and some of my base color to make sort of a muckle-de-duck. That is a technical term. Muckle-de-duck kind of color here. So it will maybe tone down that magenta color just a little bit. And then I don't know if this will work, but we're gonna see if we can pick up some of that fluorescent pink, the really liquid one. Pat a little bit of that up here. And just kind of let those colors dance around. And this is going to be a different color than this, but it's, you know, they relate to each other. So that's what we're after. Relationships, okay? Relationships. So I'm going to brush mix another little bit of the quinacridone magenta. This time I'm going to put a little bit of the Indian hue, that gold color in with it, so that we get some difference in the base color. Let's stick some of this in here. Okay, so it again is a little bit different color, but they relate to each other. And then let's try that green trick again, picking up some of the green gold. With the magenta and the other color on my brush, and because green and red are opposites on the color wheel, and so they will tend to mix together and make a usually a brown color. Okay, let's pick up a little bit of orange with whatever's on my brush, and let's put a little bit of that out here on the edge of this petal, and then maybe we can get a little bit of that pink, just a little bit. and see what happens. Thought maybe I could reshape that petal, but it had already dried, so we're gonna have to just work with what we have. Okay, so we got those 2 petals. All right, let's go. We only have 2 more petals to do. So I'm going to keep working with this kind of base pile of paint I have going on here. I added a little white into it, a little more of the yellow hue. Keep track of what petal I'm working on here. Anybody's guess whether we're going to like this when it's over and done with or not. Okay, so we got that petal in there. I'm going to just pick up a little bit of the Indian hue and a little green gold with it, just for something different. And put a little bit of that in here toward the middle. Okay, back to the kind of base color, base petal color. And then maybe a little bit of the orange. And maybe a little diary light yellow this time with the orange, and see what happens if we add that. The problem with acrylic paint is when it starts to dry on the item, whatever the item is, if it starts drying and it dries just enough, it will pick up the paint from below. So you have to be real careful that you don't push too far, because otherwise it will just dig a hole in the paint that you're working with. So got to be careful with that. Okay, back to, let's start with the magenta hue again, or the magenta, quinacridone magenta. Pick up a little bit of the red, one of the red colors I have on the palette. This one, I'm going to put some of that in that quin magenta, and maybe a little bit of white this time. And let's see what happens. So this is going to be a little bit more like the petal up here at the top, it looks like. It's a unique experience painting on the copper. Okay, so we have that, and now we're going to need to get a different color in that center area, close to the center. So I just picked up some of the green gold on my brush and mixed it with whatever was the base color of that petal to let it go a little bit brown. Okay, so it gives it a little bit more dimension. And then we need something that's going to highlight the outer edge of that petal. And so I'm going to pick up yellow and maybe some white. Okay, a little bit of white, a little bit of yellow. And I don't think we've got any of the pink that's still usable up here, but oh, a little bit. We got a little bit. Okay, let's see if we can get this to highlight the edge of this petal. Okay, I'm going to have to go back and pick up just a little bit more of the pink. And see if we can get a little more of the pink up here in this petal. Just so it looks like it belongs. And maybe a little bit more. Of that pinky tone somewhere in this other petal also. Otherwise they don't look like they belong on the same stem. Okay, so I don't know again whether you can see that or not from your vantage point, but over here it does look better. Here we go. Okay, and now we need to put a center in this flower. So let's pick up some green gold. I need some fresh green gold. So little fresh dollop of green gold. And this time I'm going to use the green gold here. And I'm going to pick up some of the Quin Violet. Or Quin, sorry, magenta, not violet. And see if we can get it to go. See, it's going to go to a nice kind of brownish color. So I'm going to put a little bit more green gold in it so it doesn't go quite so brown, and let's see what happens. Yeah, it's not green enough. So and this flower is very open, so we're gonna let it have a nice big center. While I have this color going here, let's see if we can put a little bit of green down here at the base of this petal, like this is part of where the flower is going to open up a little bit. And let's add a little bit of this back over on this one. There we go. see if I can find something that's still wet on this palette. And I'm going to see if I can blend this just a little bit. Okay, I like that a little bit better. Okay, so this little center here is quite dark, which is what I was intending for it to be. So let's pick up some white and some yellow and a little bit of the Indian yellow hue. And let's see if we can get this to show up a little bit. Yeah, so we're highlighting in that little center in here, and let those little dib dabbles of color, the light color, come out on the petals a little bit. Oh, my palette is so dry. The nemesis of my acrylic paint journey. So I'm just kind of blending some of those that got a little too much, blended those out a little bit. So there's our center, blend it a little bit. Okay, you put it on, you blend it back a little bit. Okay. And now I think what we're going to do is we are going to move my palette a little bit so you can see a little bit better maybe. Let's see, we have a few more minutes here. Let's go to this because I want to see what color it is, this light green, which is almost fluorescent, and some green gold, which I have up here, some green gold up there, some of this light green down here, and I'm going to add a little bit of burnt umber light on the palette just so that I have it in case I need to tone things down a little bit. So here's what we have. When you tip it down, it looks dead. When you tip it up, you start seeing the colors. Okay, let's try, let's go for some of the leaves. I don't know whether we're going to get the leaves in with a little round brush or go back to my angled brush. We're going to just find out. And I'm going to put out some more of the glazing liquid so I have it. So I'm just kind of making a green that is neither the green gold nor the light green, something in between. Let's see what happens. Okay, we have a leaf that's back here. Let's start here, just because we can. Okay, that leaf shape is like this. take a little bit of the burnt umber light and mix mix into this mixture, and I'm going to pat some of that color. It's not really giving me what I want, so I'm going to try it with the Quin Magenta instead. This is being a little bit of a challenge. There, that's better. Because you want the color, you want the green to be there, but you don't want it to be in your face. It's a supporting character, not a leading character, okay? So that you have to keep in mind when you're working when you're doing the leaves and greenery and so forth. They're supporting characters, not leading characters. Okay, so it's green, but it's not super green. Now, what we may put in is a little bit of green with a little yellow. Out at the tip. So, I don't know whether you're going to be able to see that or not, but there is some shading on the green. Let's try a little bit more. Let's try a little white with a little bit of yellow and see if we can get that to get a little bit more contrast. Okay, I'm happier with that. So it has some contrast. Okay, let's go for another leaf and let's see what we can get. There's another one that's kind of a background leaf right up here. Let's see what that will do. So green gold, the light green, I'm going to put a little bit of the magenta, Quin Magenta in it, which will knock down some of the brightness. All right, let's go for another leaf up here, which is, I'm having to look so I can see, because I can hardly see what I have drawn here. There it is. Okay. Okay, there's the shape of the leaf. So that's the first thing I'm going to do. Then I'm going to pick up more of the Quin Magenta, mix it into my green mixture, maybe a touch of the burnt umber light, which will just more quickly darken that green a little bit. Let's see if we can put some of that in here. Okay, I'm going to go back to my green mixture and kind of blend those two together a little bit. Because I'm making this up as I go along, folks, so we're just going to see what we get it to do for us. And then I'm going to come back with a little bit of white with whatever green goo is on my brush, and come back and blend that over the top. So we do have a contrast of colors, different shades of greens. That's what we're after. That's what I'm after. All right, let's go some more. Let's see if we can get some more leaves in here before my paint mixture totally dries up. So here's another one. And let's put a little bit more of this I don't know. You guys may think this is horrendously boring to watch this, but I'm having a good time. I'm having fun. I can sit and watch somebody paint something, but I always could. I could sit and watch them paint and go, oh yeah, I love that. I love watching it appear. Whatever the thing is that is appearing, I would love to sit and watch that. One of the things I used to love to watch people do is paint doll faces when I was really into my doll making phase. I love to watch people do that because that was the scariest part of the doll, is the face. And if you could get the face right, the doll was, everything else fell into place. If you couldn't get the face right, nothing else really mattered a whole lot, you know. So I could sit and watch. In fact, I have sat and watched doll designers paint faces one after the other, because I absolutely loved watching the character of the figure emerge. Okay, so there's another leaf. Again, a little bit different than the others. I don't know if you can tell that or not, but you know, maybe you can. Okay, let's get some. I'm just going to keep mixing in my little brush mix of yuck down here, because that's kind of what it is. It's muckle-de-duck yuck. How about that for a name? Let's see, we have a leaf here that is peeking out. I'm trying to get the ones that are kind of the real background leaves. Let's see if we can get this one to poke out. Okay, so that's just kind of peeking out from behind. When they are behind, you have to have the contrast of dark versus light. If you don't have that contrast, then everything's on the same plane, and it's not because the leaf is behind the petal. So hopefully you can see that. All right, let's put a little highlight on the tip. And it's okay if the leaves kind of, sometimes you want the leaves to just kind of disappear into the background. So if the color of the tip of the leaf is similar to the color, to the value of the background, that's okay, because it will kind of have it disappear back there. So I'm trying to get a color that I think value-wise is going to be similar to the background. So I can demonstrate what I'm talking about. I don't know whether it will. Yeah, you can kind of see that at the tip of that leaf up here, it just sort of fades into the background. That's what I'm talking about. Back to work, Elton Faye, back to work. Gonna have to crack the whip on you. Okay. It is 3 o'clock. I think what we're gonna do, oh, and I missed one more petal here. I think what I'm gonna do is let me put this petal in right here, and then we're gonna call it good for today. What color shall we do for that petal right there? We're gonna have to go into the yellows just a little bit more. Let's go. My hands are getting very full of acrylic paint. I know that's hard to imagine. See, I just end up with paint all over. Let's go. I need a little bit more white. Way too much paint for one petal, but it's okay. It is a-okay. All right, so we're gonna go yellow and white. So I'm gonna put some yellow, the Diary Light yellow, and some white. A touch of the Indian yellow hue. Indian yellow hue. Yeah, India yellow hue. And we're gonna put this right here. So there's one single little bloom petal that I missed. So we're going to put this one in, and then we're going to call it a day. I'm not going to torture you with sitting here to watch all the rest of the leaves. Okay, so we're going to have this little flower petal here. And then let's take the India yellow. Let's put in a little green gold, see what happens if we put some green gold into that. Put that down here in the base of this petal. So we're going to kind of bring those leaves, that leaf color, into this petal. Just patting it into that nice yellow color. And then I'm going to clean out my brush and dry it really well. And I'm going to pick up some white. Let's try just plain white with whatever is on my brush. So you see I've got, even though I cleaned out my brush, it's picking the yellow up out of the brush. So I'm going to pick up some more white. Let's see if we can get this to pick up the edge of this petal and pop it forward. And then I'm going to pick up a little bit more of that just plain Diary Light yellow. So that we can get that to really be nice and bright. Okay, and then just because we don't want it to stick out like a sore thumb, I'm going to pick out the tiniest little speck possible, hopefully, of the Quin Magenta. And let's see if we can put a little bit of that in here with kind of with that green, and let those colors blend together. So that this little flower doesn't appear that it doesn't belong to anybody. We want it to belong to the rest of the bouquet. So a little bit of that Quin Magenta in there. Hopefully you can see that. And then we're going to pick up a little bit of the green gold and a little bit of that burnt umber light together, so it's a greenish, brownish green. And then we're going to put some of that right down here at the base of this, because I think these are buds. At least that's what I'm going to call them. Are some little buds there. And I'm going to come back to a little bit of that yellow color and tap on top of that. Okay, so it looks like those petals are kind of up down into this green part where they're just beginning, it's just ready to open up. Okay, all right. With that, I'm going to put my palette away, out of the way. And I'm going to try showing this to you in the camera that shows you my face, and we'll see whether you can see what it looks like. That's pretty true in the colors from over there. So hopefully that makes sense, kind of what we're doing. And so we'll keep going. I'll either paint this when it's just me, or we'll work on it together on Monday, maybe on Monday, and see what we can come up with. I don't know what we're going to do, but I think I'm kind of liking it. I don't know if you can see the glint of the copper through the petals. Let's try this camera. If you can see the copper kind of influencing, kind of shining through. You can really see it shining through this one up here, and some in here. A lot of the copper's coming through the base. Anyway, I don't know about you, but I am having a world of fun with this. Anyway. Okay. That being said, we're going to take off. I hope you guys have a wonderful weekend, or whenever you're watching. I hope you're having an enjoyable experience and adventure with your life and your creativity. And I'll be back Monday night at 7 Eastern. So until then, as always, remember to get creative today, because you know it's easy. And I will see you before you know it. Have a really good rest of your day. And I'll see you on Monday night. Bye for now.